Yeah.
When you see yourself like that, it's hard to believe that it all began.
Good time of day to all of you, my friends, here on the Internet Chess Club. This is Grandmaster Alex Yermolinsky, and welcome. Russian Schoolboy show live. Twice a month I'm here. Not set Thursdays, but always 2 Thursdays every month. And I'm happy to be back. We've had a lot of fun, I think, last
When you see
week
yourself like that,
when I
it's hard.
boasted a little bit about my coaching success when my student David Brodsky, the youngster from Westchester County, New York, had extremely good result at the Washington Chess Congress, scoring his first GM norm. Alright, David is young, he's only 14, and well, he has time. Although, how much time a young player has these days? Well, that's gonna be the discussion today, and I'm gonna show you some games from the ongoing Russian Super Final, focusing on one player, on the youngest player, the new player for this level, Grischuk Oparin. Now, Grigory is quite a bit older than my student David. Grischuk Oparin is 19 years old. I have been following this player for two reasons. Well, first of all, he had a great tournament in the higher league, qualifying, winning this event, I think outright, or maybe he got caught at the end of the tournament, but he was leading that strong Swiss throughout. And secondly, he is coached by a friend of mine, Grandmaster Sergei Shipov, who's quite a famous coach over there in Russia, and also he's even more known as the chess commentator. He does a lot of shows there on Russian Chess TV, and we work together online. So anyway, I took some interest in this young player, Oparin. And now, 5 rounds into the tournament, look at this cross table. Okay, my man Grigory is in 7th place, 50%. Well, you may say not too shabby for a young player, right? For his debut in the national championship. But let's look at the field. I mean, aside of Svidler and Grischuk, no, well, I don't know. Then we go down to the level of Tomaszewski, Yakovenko, and Vityugov, which is, I guess, okay, not too shabby, but no, those guys couldn't even make the... Okay, Tomaszewski made the Olympic team. Although probably some fans of the Russian team wish that he didn't. Because he was the weak link in the Russian team over there. And his results, well, they failed to impress, honestly. The Tal Memorial just not finishing last only because Boris Gelfand had a nightmare of a tournament. I also want to point out the guy who is at the bottom of the table now, Ernesto Inarkiev. Now, I talked about this guy a little bit, because he had a great stretch a year ago, when he won the Russian Super Final. Also, of course, in Sands, Karyakin, Kramnik, and who else there? Nepomniachtchi, obviously. Anyways, then he won the European Championship, so 2 great results. And that moved his rating up to 2732. And then it's all downhill from there. Yeah, it's hard. Now, chess is so competitive these days. I mean, we always think that the real talent will somehow fight his way through. But is it easier now? Has it ever been easy? I don't know really. But these days, I mean, it's not only the Russian championship. It's not only chess in Russia. So, how about in the United States? Yeah, okay, so we won the Olympiad basically on strength of 3 players. Now, so they all played well. Some of them, I would say, Wesley So and somewhat lesser extent, Caruana played exceptionally well. Nakamura had a good result. I mean, the other 2 guys, okay, they didn't mess up, put it this way. Ray Robson and Sam Shankman, but I mean, are we gonna be seeing them competing on the highest level, top 10 in the world? Well, we don't know. I don't want to close the book on these guys. Well, they still have time, but well, as I said at the beginning, how much time do you have? I mean, if you look at the curve of development of Magnus Carlsen, Anish Giri, Fabiana Caruana, these guys became stars, in their teens. Well, so did Nakamura, put it the same way. And now we're looking at the top players and we say, oh, they're all young. No, well, they're not getting any younger. Carlsen and his peers, all that great crop of players that born in the year 1990, they're 26 years old. Oh, that would be Karyakin, Vashev Graf, Nepomniachtchi. Well, I don't know. I mean, Anish Giri is the youngest, right, among the top players now, but he's already 22. At this age, Garry Kasparov was competing for world championship already and actually became a world champion. He was still 22 years old at the end of 1985, beating Karpov in the second match. So, I don't know, is this going to be the pattern? Well, I hope not. I hope we'll see young talent coming out of anywhere, I don't care. Russia, US, China, India, Norway again, Luxembourg, Uganda, you name it, doesn't matter. But we always need fresh blood in chess. Chess did have periods when same people stayed at the top for a long time and they played each other and obviously not really improving their chess, just kind of playing a little game of musical chairs. It happened during the Soviet reign in the, let's say, probably 1960s. And it extended into the 1970s. Maybe there should be a gap, of some, 15 years or so between truly great genius players. All right. Kasparov before him, Karpov, 12 years difference. Spassky. No, I'm among those who consider Spassky somewhat more than just another Soviet world champion. I believe there was more to Spassky. Not both as a chess player and as a human being. But Spassky was born in 1937, and 14 years they had to wait for the next great talent. And that's during the time of domination of Soviet chess. So what's going on now? So suppose we have this great year of 1990, and then what? We have to wait for the people born in the early 2000s, 2002, 2004, until they mature. Well, then the next world champion is my student David Brodsky. How's that? Rapport, Duda, Wei. Okay, I'm not writing this guys off, but Wei, he was very impressive, but lately his development simply stopped. I really don't think he improved one little bit for the past 2 years. He's been struggling against somewhat older players in his own Chinese national team. All he does is plays this never-ending Chinese championship under different names, this cup, that cup. And they play those tournaments and he plays the same people and it suppresses his rating. And I don't really see him improving that much. The lack of opens. Invitational tournaments hurt chess. No, entitlement certainly hurts on all levels, beginning from politics and going to, well, I don't know, any entertainment, well, culture, whatever, science. No, that's what happens, People grab a hold of a sweet spot and they sit there, and you can hardly blame them for this, right? Everybody has to survive. Yeah, and in some ways, there are only limited number of places under the sun. Well, we always count on kind of natural process of young talent coming up and replacing the old guard. But, I mean, also there is a fact, that people, I don't know, live longer lives. They don't drink themselves to death. They, I don't know, eat healthy, exercise. I'm not speaking for myself, actually, in general. But I mean, it's okay, so they're gonna stick around until what, 60 or 70. Okay, good for them, fine. Live a long life, live long and prosper. Well, yeah, but there is one problem, that are they getting any better? Oh, obviously not. I think in all walks of life, we can tell that a person accomplishes all there was to him or her to accomplish, I don't know, in the first 40 years of their life. And from there, they simply coast. No, right, chess has the advantage of being the competitive kind of meritocracy, if you wish. Indeed, if you start losing, you'll be out of there. But it allows you to hang in there a little bit. Invitational tournaments, keeping your rating up, making a lot of draws. Should I name names? You probably know. I don't know, Rapport, Duda. Well, I like their games, don't get me wrong, but, well, I will be lying to you if I say I'm as impressed with these guys as I was with Magnus Carlsen or Hikaru Nakamura when they were that age. Clearly not. So I don't know. All right, let's see how Oparin is doing in this tournament. Well, he started off with 2 draws, which weren't particularly interesting. And then in round 3, he plays this guy Dmitry Kokarev. Now, let me switch to this cross table again. And I point out, okay, no Kramnik. Kramnik didn't want to play. No Karyakin. All right, that's obvious reasons. He is last stages of preparation for the World Championship match. Who's the next guy on the list in Russia? Well, clearly Nepomniachtchi, right? This guy started 7 out of 7, the Olympiad. He played lower board, but board 4. They put Tomaszewski on board 3. But he won his first 7 games, and then they put all the money on Nepomniachtchi, played him again in a 4th game in a row with the white pieces in the match against the US, basically telling him, okay, Jan, you have to win, because no one else can. Well, and it put too much pressure on it. Put too much pressure on anyone. So he ended up losing with white to Wesley So, and that's basically was the Olympiad. At least as far as the Russians, their chances went. Yeah, why isn't Nepomniachtchi there? Do you know? I know. Oparin lost to Tal Baron in the ICC match. No, Tal was pretty good player. No. I mean, I wouldn't read much into this or that, I just want to illustrate things. But first, a question, which you didn't answer. So why isn't Nepomniachtchi there? The guy just won the Tal Memorial. No, well, yeah, most math science guys, well, Albert Einstein. I mean, I don't know, just seriously, I'm obviously I hardly have any background in physics and all that, and I barely understand, well, the relativity theory, but I mean, how old was Einstein when this whole thing was written? And then the rest of his life, the unified theory, which never panned out. They say your brain become just, you lose some flexibility. No, it's not. Al Bundy, I'm sorry, there was no conflict. He wanted to play, and I know that for sure. He even said it in his own interview. He just used the kind of, he expressed it this way not to complain about the decision of the Russian Chess Federation and not to invite him in this tournament. No, he wanted to play. But they said, okay, what we have here, we have defending champion in Arkeyev, fair enough. We have top 5 players by rating. So they would be coming down from number 3 on that list: Svidler, Grischuk, Tomaszewski, Yakovenko, and Vityugov. And then the 6 qualifiers from higher league tournament. Look, I'm all for it, for a qualification. I think the Russians are doing it right. I think that's what's lacking in the United States. We don't have a qualifying tournament for the US Championship. Now, I'm going to be real brutal, and I tell you this. I personally do not care much, if Alex Lenderman or Varakobian or, I don't know, any of the other guys of that level, gain extra 10 rating points and get an invitation into the US Championship. I don't think it's right. To me, the only people who should get an invitation into the US Championship should obviously be the top 3 players, and I would make an exception for 2 players who completed the Olympic team. Doesn't matter, well, they won the Olympiad this time or they may not win next time, but they're Olympic team players. Others, I don't care. I don't think, that rating, should be a decisive factor. Applying this to the same thing to this tournament, this particular tournament, I see no reason to have Vityugov and Yakovenko invited into this tournament. They did not play in the qualifier. Is the rating higher than Nepomniachtchi's rating? Well, of course not. Nepomniachtchi is higher by them by good 40 points. 40 points! Well, you may say I gained those points recently. Well, yeah, that's what counts. You gained those points recently. He's hot. He's one of the top players now for sure in his country, and he wanted to play. Why isn't he there? Next question, Dmitry Andreikin. If you look at his rating now, he is at 2730, high 2730. He's also higher than these guys. So they took some old rating. Something from, I don't know, January, whatever, this year. It's been good, 10 months. I mean, that's wrong. And the US should not be doing that either. I say this, you give 5 players there, okay, give them an invitation. Obviously, for Nakamura, Caruana, and so it goes without saying. Others, they should play in the qualifier. Well, anyway, to the games. Alright, so in round 3, my hero, Grigory Oparin, plays black against Kokarev. I don't know who Kokarev is. I'm sure he's a decent player. And they go into the Sicilian, and then on knight b3. Rare line f3. Well, black doesn't have to answer the Snyder style. He can do whatever. He can play the dragon, but then white's happy because he's got the Yugoslav attack lined up. He can play whatever, e6, but then white's happy. He's got the English attack lined up. So this is logical. Now, knight b3. First question, why not d5? Isn't this the kind of thing that you always want to do in the Sicilian? Before he puts his pawn on c4 and gets the Maraxi bind of sorts. Does anyone know a thing about this position? Are you guys Najdorf players? If you are, in particular, you should worry about the move f3. I don't want you to be surprised by this system. It's been around already for quite a while. So, any suggestions here how white proceeds from this point on? Do they take on d5 and try to trade everything and make a draw? Mick Lopping tells me Nepo went downhill. Oh, Nepo went downhill in the past many times. You know, well, that's his addiction to computer games, which he now swears that he's done with. I mean, in the past, clearly with his talent. Come on, the guy was as good as Carlson was when they both were 15 years old. Now, and how come it took him 10 years while Carlson was winning everything? No, F3 is not fallen off, you know. The F3 actually is quite okay now, particularly because of this position. Now, this is different. I'm not talking about some F3, H3 systems against the regular Najdorf. I'm talking about this particular position. And I gotta tell you that black does not equalize here. Not against this move, bishop g5. So that f3 is followed by knight b3 is sort of a positional trap. Now you do this, it's probably the best move. They take, must take with the pawn to keep the queen protecting. Now they trade over here. And boy, this endgame is so unpleasant. I mean, well, black, it's not even the damage to the pawn structure. It's more like, you know, that black has fallen behind in development, and there is no safety for his king, because on king e7, eventually there always going to be knight d5 check, and then you're going to have to part with your light square bishop. There are all sorts of problems here. This is not a good position for black. Black actually quit playing it. So I looked at recent games by experts in the Najdorf, like Boris Gelfand and some others. Korobov, Anton Korobov from Ukraine. He plays Najdorf very well. They all totally quit on this. They don't play d5. So don't be surprised that bishop e7 was played in this game by Oparin. He actually had played this before, and his opponent had a chance to prepare. So they go c4. And now comes this move. a5. The black had some success with this move. Anyway, so I'll go through some moves there, and then knight c1. Knight c1 is a rare move. Normally it's knight d2. It was played more regularly, including a few times against Gelfand. Oparin himself had one game where he was on the black side of this. Something, what did he do? Castles, rook b1, knight c6. White played that. But the problem is, from White's point of view, it's like, okay, you have the d5 square, but if you go there, he will trade. And what do you get out of this? Maybe not a whole lot. Because you're going to have to take back with the pawn, and it's like King's Indian pawn structure. But black is ready to play f5 because he gets rid of this knight. I think the fact, you know, that black put the pawn on a4 and created some space for himself on the queen side. MVL. But I don't think anybody played f3 against Maxim. I haven't looked at all the games. I may have missed something. But I was mainly referring to good players of the who played the Najdorf and their experience against f3. Maybe somebody will try it against MVL, and then we'll see what he does. So anyway, my understanding of this position is that this pawn gave black some space. He moved the queen out, and he tied down the b pawn, right? You can't really move the b pawn forward. Your knight on c3 is hanging. And pushing knight d5, Varga was Oparin's opponent. He went knight b5, but it's not even attacking the pawn on d6, right? It doesn't seem very dangerous. So it was balanced game. All right. But now Kokarev's preparation. So he pulls the knight back, moves his knight to c3, castles, plays queen d2. That's why he wanted the queen on d2. We say, okay, queen on d2, big deal. It's not like he's playing bishop h6, trading bishops, and checkmating the, well, slaying the dragon over there. What's the idea? Knight c6. Technically speaking, it's a novelty, but I mean, bishop e6 was played. And now I quote the game played by another, in my opinion, glaring omission from the field of the Russian superfinal this year, Dmitry Andreikin, one of my favorite players. Yeah, well, he played. Well, before that, the talk was, the guy was not fully committed to chess. After great success in 2013 in Tromsø World Cup, when he only lost to Kramnik in the final match, and then a decent showing at the 2014 candidates tournament of 50%, not too shabby. Andreikin kind of fell, I don't know, below the radar. I mean, he is going to school, whatever, got married, a child was born, and, all that, but this year, I think he's getting serious about chess. He's same age, by the way, as Carlsen, and Karyakin, and MVL, and Nepomniachtchi, born in 1990. So there's five teams. I make a team of these 5 players, and well, they will win the Olympiad probably, right? No, at least they would have a chance. Even if the US doesn't have a player, okay, so this team born in 1990 of that caliber, but they go against the US team, but that'll be a big fight. Anyway, so Andreikin now is playing more. He played some opens, won them, and raised his rating. And why isn't this guy there too? Once again, the rigid system of invitation and qualification, simply not taking into account what's happening now. Why do we bother calculating ratings every month and posting them? If the organizers go by this stuff, like the YKNZ people, I mean, have they selected their field? In the past, the field for the YKNZ tournament was selected in, I believe, in September, and published then, 6 months ahead of the time. I mean, I don't know. I think everything goes much faster now, and they should take into account recent results, not some whatever was in the past. Returning to this was Andreikin's idea. In this position, after bishop e6, he played this great move. Now, right, it's not good to take, because rook b1 comes, the queen's in trouble. We can take on b7 too, but there is bishop b6 even worse. And then they hit this queen with c5. Okay, not right away, I guess. Maybe c5, bishop c4. No, anyway, this whole thing didn't look good. 2 blocks, so he didn't take. It took this way. Now, so it's such an unusual idea, guys. Look at this. White just split his own pawns. But that's exactly what he needs. Because then, when they go knight d5, when the time is right, then they will have more open files to play on the queen side and attack the b pawn. One c file is not going to do it. You need the half open file. It's known from typical positions of the King's Indian and Old Indian that white always tries to get the queen side open. That will keep black from getting his play on. So it's a great idea. And after knight b3, Andreikin's opponent went back, bishop there, and he tried to sidestep the c6 square, not to get hit by the pawn after knight d5, but it stood worse anyway. Now the attack came, by the way, against this pawn. Knight d7, Andreikin game there, knight dc5, knight b5. White's clearly better. d6 is grave danger. So this guy Kokarev, well, had the same plan, right? And he did it. Queen d8. I gotta tell you, Oparin was not prepared for that. Alright, maybe he didn't expect this whole thing to be played. Now, do I blame his coach, James Shipov? I don't know. But in my opinion, when you play the Najdorf, you can't just study those main lines, that are 25 moves deep. You gotta always look at some alternatives for the opponent's sidelines. Garry Kasparov was known for studying very deeply and telling his coaches, you study that sideline. I want to know exactly how I play against this. And it doesn't matter that you say, oh, it's not dangerous and I'll figure it out at the board. No, that's wrong. You have to know exactly what you're going to be doing. And in fact, if anything, this position is quite dangerous for black. And when he played Queen D8, I think it was a mistake, but it's understandable because he didn't really have any experience playing against this plan with before. But it's known, it was played already, by Andreikin and by some others. Oparin was not prepared. My opinion, he had to go Queen A3. He had to stay active because his position has a long-term deficiency with the pawn on D6 backward pawn, and white still has the Maraxi bind there, even if C4 pawn is not supported by a pawn, but it's still there. So therefore he had to look for counterplay and look for things like this. Oh gosh, give him that pawn, put the bishop out to F6, hit the loose knight, remove the defender of the E2 pawn, do something. That's what black needs to do. Queen D8 is passive. Now the game went on as follows. This, H6. Now he's trying a standard plan with bishop G5. Wants to trade his bad bishop on E7, maybe trade queens on G5, and use the knight on E8 to protect the weak pawn on D6. He's hoping, realistically so, to get some things going in the endgame against the white's loose pawn structure, A2 and C4. Jesus, which guns? No, we're not talking guns here. Oh, that's the head, man. Shit. Guns. Anyway, the heads off. Hats off to Kokarev for finding the right plan here. Look what this guy did. Queen B2. Doesn't seem like much of a move, but he clears out the diagonal. So then he can keep his bishop alive. And all black does, it looks kind of sideways. And here, okay, I criticized Oparin for not knowing what to do in this opening line. But I will not criticize him for his next series of moves. Even though, computer speaking, well, his moves were not best and possibly led him to a lost position. Nonetheless, well, he is, and I notice it in his games, he's looking in the right direction. It's the opponent's king and he's looking for counterplay. He plays H5, Queen F6. Now, great play from Kokarev. That breakthrough is supremely strong. And now he took, went knight D4, gave up the pawn on B7. Got this one back. But it doesn't look good for black, right? Knight C3. The white knight is returning and aiming to come to D5. The knight on A8 is stuck, and so is the rook behind the knight. If you look at this position and play, I don't know, sort of a normal move. This, Queen E6. White will probably throw in H4 for good measure. Over there, the pawn goes to C6. Next order of business is to trade off black's only active piece. Everything else is sealed off. The knight, the queen. Oh, white has a technically winning position with the C pawn that's gonna queen. The bishop is totally off kilter. Okay. So we go back here. And when I see what Oparin did, it gives me hope. Such things, that's what really makes chess a game that we all love. Just the ability, of turning things around and doing something that you're not supposed to be doing. Look at the idea that Oparin found. You think he's giving the exchange? Okay, anybody could give the exchange here. You take on c5, then, then you have some checks, some dark squares. That looks pretty much a standard sacrifice. The problem, rather, what to do against knight d5. How to handle this. And he plays this move. Giving up a queen with check. Okay, take a look at this position. Seriously. He played bishop e3. Oh yeah, the concept. No, it's not really an attack and sacrifice. No, it's not. White takes, black takes back with the knight. But he has a threat to the queen, right? So white, I assume, would move the king away. And then he'll capture back on c5. So, two minor pieces, bishop and knight, and the pawn on d6. But now everything is nicely anchored. No visible weaknesses in the position. And you look at this and think, what's white's winning plan? Trade all the rooks? Yeah, maybe he can do this. And then what? One queen against this fortress? You gotta get the pawns involved somehow. I mean, the commentators there, they all said, well, I cannot understand why white didn't play this. I mean, what are you talking about? I mean, did you already forget what it is like to play chess? White had a game going, he was in control of events. He did things, that he wanted to do, this queen b2 and c5. He had not his own, but good opening idea with b4. Everything went his way. And now I can't help but be disappointed, with this. Now you're down to this long and tedious task, of somehow breaking through this, if you can. Or can you not? You don't know. I mean, it's a letdown from a point of view of white in this situation, just to play this position. That must be winning. That's all they're saying, must be winning. But no, all right. Well, I've faced situations like this. Maybe more than other players, I was able to just put my foot down and say, all right, chess is not supposed to be fun. Well, yeah, you have a technical task, you get your act together and get to work. Yeah, I had this ability, maybe more than others. But nonetheless, I would not be a happy camper, like getting into this situation with white, because I thought that the game was mine. You see, everything's relative in chess. You can't help but remember how things were going for you and your hopes and expectations, as the game goes along, as moves are made and situation changes on the board. I don't think that most people, would take this position from starting position, right? Why not? Hey, you're not risking to lose and you'll play for a win. But this position did not appear by force from move one. The game already went through some stages, and I can understand why Kokarev didn't want to do this. He was wrong. Mainly he was wrong because one advantage that this position would give him is the ability to play a lot of moves and avoid time trouble for now. Yeah, you should probably start with this move rook b2, get rid of that active rook, and then, whatever, maneuver around and play quick and build up time. And, I don't know really what kind of chess player Dmitry Kokarev is. But he probably had to do this, but it comes with experience. Okay. He makes a decision not to accept the sacrifice. Well, he had ideas, right? I mean, those are pretty deep ideas, actually. He's going after the queen. Look at this. If you What happened in this position? Okay, pardon me. Yeah, he took. Well, actually, black had to play g6. g6 was the only move. Well, because this is not so great, because the queen is coming out from g5 and makes a checkmate threat. So white really cannot mess around playing like this, moving the knight away. He's gonna end up checkmated. Queen g5 and then g3 and then queen check and infiltration. So, after g6, white would have to go back, and then, no, the knight is not very active. Now, can white do things with the c-pawn or not? I doubt it, honestly. But Oparin here took on c5. I guess he was somewhat shocked by his opponent's refusal to accept the queen sacrifice. Maybe he just couldn't get his brain to work in this situation. Both players missed, in my opinion, a crushing move, h4. You say, what? Yeah, I'm defending against queen g5. But I'm not just defending. I'm looking to play knight b6. How are you gonna like that? It's extremely difficult to defend this position. I am not sure black can. dc5 was a mistake. But you gotta see h4. No, well, this is where I can say that that's the reason why these guys are what? 26-36, 26-12. Well, they have to be able to find moves like this. Well, I can tell one thing about our top 10 players, maybe even I would say top 20. And top 10, and they immediately followed by another group of players. So they basically all, 2750 plus. They never miss moves like this. It's still too early in the game. They can miss an idea like this maybe 10 moves later on move 38, when they're low on time, or maybe in the end game when everybody gets tired. But at move 28, Nakamura, Caruana, in old guard, Topalov, Anand, they don't miss moves like this. They simply do not. Well, it brings me to this subject. All right. Aren't chess players supposed to be born or whatever, or somehow develop their talent of finding moves like h4 at somewhat early age? And then we say, oh, they're still too raw, they need experience, let them season a little bit and play some tough tournaments, and then they're finally ready. Is this the pattern? Queen e6 is the only move, yeah. Let me see here. I think he shuts the door with rook d5. I think that's the continuation. Still coming up with that powerful rook to b6. I mean, the black pieces, they lost coordination here. It's serious uphill battle here for black. Anyway, so I'm returning to what I'm saying, and it's like, okay, so what do you do? How do you become a better player? Alright, so they study this, and they say the young players, they need the end game, and they obviously improve in their understanding of different structures and openings, but this, the h4 thing, it's supposed to be there. Now, it's pretty difficult to somehow obtain the ability to find moves like h4 at later stages of your career. You can teach, this kind of stuff almost. No, well, the only way to teach it is just like, I don't know, you just go through games, study, and particularly, sharp positions, study games of Fischer and Tal and Stein, and whatever, and Nakamura, and But, okay, it should help to some extent. So there's always hope that we can improve in chess. But, no, that's sort of uphill battle. G6 here and queen to h8. The position of the queen. Alright, what should white do? I guess you can start with the... Should I do the check? Or simply put the knight to g3. Actually, keeping the knight on g3. I'm not sure how useful the check is going to be. So I do this. You move your rook somewhere. Let me throw this guy in there. So I'm trying to attack this knight, you know, make it pin knight on this. I've got... What I've got here? I thought I had a check. But I wanted to take the pawn on e5. You got knight e8. You're hanging in there. Yeah, the knight is not very active. But maybe still. And I play this one. And I want to continue with rook c8. I mean, the queen's terrible, right? So this has to be quite good for white, even this position. Maybe white can play it better. Anyway, knight e7 takes g6. Yeah, I probably should have looked at that. Yeah. Oh man, I missed that. Good thinking. Oops. Forget about this. h4 there. Yeah, I missed that. Oh, this is like amazing. Knight g6 pin. Great job, Lars. Excellent. Yeah, white's winning, but oh, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much, you know. It's just a random game. But on the other hand, you know, do I have the time to study every game played by Dmitry Kokarev and Grigory Oparin, you know? Well, I only do this because currently, well, the top players are taking a break. Alright, anyway, so the game ended this way. Now, Kokarev, I know, got himself into time trouble, and in this position he repeated moves. Basically, what it tells me, that he spent too much time getting there. He probably spent quite a bit of time deciding to accept or not to accept the queen sacrifice. And here, with 10 moves before the time control, he ran out of time. What risk is white running by playing this move? The zero risk. In fact, you know, the knight is kind of out of position. There is a chance of going queen, a knight check and then knight somewhere, then the queen will open up on the rook. I mean, why can't white just continue this game? What sense does it make to repeat the moves? Unless, you know, you're totally mentally or physically exhausted and out of time. Anyway, escape by Oparin. Okay, let's look at Mohammed's line here. It's interesting. Well, it's not gonna make me change my mind. Well, I guarantee, like, well, I applaud your effort in trying to deal with this situation best way you can, but okay, so you're gonna be losing pawns, right? Okay, suffering will start with the move knight e7. It's not pawns. Okay, so that queen, maybe you meant queen e8. Okay, queen e8 at least doesn't lose the queen on the spot. Okay. What should I do here? What I really like to do in this position at some moment is to sacrifice on f6 and checkmate. Yeah. Well, that's a risky looking move, but it's interesting. I want to take on g7 or I want to take on f6 twice. Well, you have some chances for counterattack, granted, with some queen a4. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, we have to move on. It's fun to analyze these positions, but more games. Okay, then round 4. Oparin has white against another relatively unknown player, Alex Gaganov. Gaganov actually played in a couple of years ago in the Russian Super Final. That was a stronger tournament. I think it had Kramnik and had some others. He didn't distinguish himself. He fought hard every game and he didn't lose every game, but no. He's probably still pretty young. I'm trying to figure out. He's rated 26-35. A guy played 2 years ago in the Super Final, right? I'm sure his rating was not lower than it is now. 26, so he remains at 26-30. Now, why? What's the problem? I guess it's maybe the Wei effect. Well, like it or not, there is certain, for lack of a better word, segregation. Then you only play in tournaments that you can play. I mean, everybody experiences that. I experienced it in a way. I mean, I sit there and sometimes I think like, why, maybe I should go play one of those great opens, that I played for 20 years, 25 years, World Opens, whatever, US Opens. Well, open tournaments, right? It's not like I need any kind of special invitation or anything, but other things come into consideration. Money, of course, it all starts with the cost. I mean, I tell you what, I decided finally that I'll go play one tournament of those that I played in the past. Me and my wife will travel to LA, or no, rather Orange County, for the American Open over Thanksgiving weekend. Okay, well, great. Can I do this more than once a year? I mean, the airfare, it's like almost $700 per person, almost $1,400. That's what it costs these days. It's the reality. All right, so other situations, obviously. Now I'm thinking, can this guy like Gaganov from St. Petersburg decide, I need a little change of scenery. I don't want to play the same guys, so let me just, I don't know, travel in Europe for 6 months, and play in Spain and France and whatever, Germany and Italy. Well, I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's possible for him. It's just, the cost is prohibitive. Maybe he'll get conditions here and there, but it's much harder to do now. No, I didn't cover Grischuk's win. Yeah, we'll get to this. Now, let me do this thing, real quick, right? So, Oparin wins his next game against Gaganov, but once again, I don't really know these guys, but I can see that they basically stagnate over there. And I can see somewhat similar situation in the United States. Obviously, behind every player there is his personal story. People go to school. Robert has, people have different this and that, but even in the US, with our great championship and the kind of money, pumped into this thing by Rex Sinkfield and aside of the big three, I don't know if the cupboard is completely bare. It's not. With Shankland there and Robson, and Lenderman, but still. It's always a question, how long can a player, keep on trying? You basically need help these days, and it starts with very young age. I was talking last week how expensive it is to travel for a young player. I mean, for school age, for the parents of a school age player. I mean, some of the costs are staggering. Like you go for World Youth in Khanty-Mansiysk. You know what you have to do? It's like you have to come with your kid, right? He's only 14. So tickets there, I guess even from JFK, like you get to Moscow, then you have to get on a flight to Khanty, maybe $1,500 per person, I don't know. Then the hotel over there and all that. And you want to bring a coach there? Oh, Jesus. Somebody told me, okay, the guy was kind of tend to exaggerate. No, that was just his personality. Anyway, the parent of one of the top young players in the US at that time. He said, you know how much my kid's chess cost me? 100 grand a year. Okay, I said, okay. The guy could afford it, right? He was an investment banker with the office in San Francisco. Couple of blocks away from the Mechanics Institute where I worked. Okay. Anyway, so to this thing. So Oparin employs this not really a very pretentious system, but it's been known for many years. And recently Kramnik had a few games. Kramnik tries this and that, and no, he just wants to get a playable game with white. So capture here makes sense, and now knight d7 somewhat unusual. I myself always put the knight on c6 there. Thought that it's a better position for the knight, but I guess knight d7. And now white has a choice, right? One thing he can do is to play d4 and go for those hanging pawns. The c4 pawn will be real weak. Maybe you could use some preparation in form of rook c1 for that. Maybe. And another one is to try to attack on the king's side. Sometimes it's knight e1. Then trying to play f4. Bishops are traded and you go g4. Try to clear out a diagonal for this bishop. This is how Kramnik played this position. Against the knight on c6 though. Oparin comes up with interesting concept. He does the same thing, but he offers black to take that knight, which messes up white's pawn structure, but opens the G file. And then this. Okay, I didn't analyze this game very deeply. On the face of it, it's interesting, but suspect. I mean, the damage to the pawn structure is significant, more important than it seems. And I think Gaganov played quite well. Now, this is a good knight maneuver. So first he threatened to play b5, and now he's got the b4 square. So the knight is going there. He played this interesting move f5. Well, there is some danger, of course, of opening up this bishop, but he's fighting for light squares. Yeah, it's kind of an old-fashioned game a little bit in terms of maneuvering and a lot of tension there, hidden tension, but no tactics yet. I would give both players credit, credit to Oparin for having the guts, to go for this whole thing, but equal credit, if not more, to Gaganov for figuring out how to play against it. This is a great move. So he strikes in the center and opens up the position, and white has collection of weaknesses, of course, pawn weaknesses. Already black wins a pawn, and it's clear already that black is better. Alright, do I blame Oparin for this? No, not really. a young player. No, he played 3 draws. No, it's time to make your mark on the tournament. You have to take chances. You have to take a risk. I admire that. I think that's the right approach. To me, what's the difference if a player plays his first big tournament like a national championship, scores 50% or scores, I don't know, minus score, I don't know, -2 or -3. There's no difference at all. All this talk that, wow, you improve and first you learn not to lose to these guys and then, no, that's a famous Peter Lecker quote. Two weeks at the basketball camp, $1,000. Even chess camps, yeah. What's chess camp now? If it's tuition plus room and board at the chess camp, $700, and it's like 5 days. I mean, everything's expensive. No, I mean, tell me about it. Well, tell anybody about it, but no. Important thing there, is to, well, we have to have some kind of mechanism in place, something that basically can only be a foundation, when they objectively look at situations individually, if the young player needs help, then maybe they could provide it. No, right, so I'll just throw some numbers, like suppose, I assume that Sanford Fellowship, right, it's been there for a long time, and it provides some money for living expenses plus travel to tournaments and coaching services. Coaching services, I think, was it long ago, 20 years ago? It's been that long, since any of the Sanford recipients. No, it hasn't. Well, there were some exceptions, but I think they try to spread it out between different coaches. And anyway, okay, forget about Sanford or whatever. Suppose you want to hire a coach that would monitor, would not work every day, obviously. But monitor progress, look at some games, give some tips, all that. Realistically, well, probably the minimum you need is $500 a month. Otherwise, you're not going to get on the Gregory Kaidanov speed dial. Or, okay, what am I saying? What's speed dial? You guys probably don't even remember what speed dial is. Okay, list of contacts in your messaging thing on your cell phone. Okay, forget it. Sometimes I say things that don't make sense at all. Speed dial, jeez. Anyways, $500, right? Okay, well, jokes aside, it's a commitment. You make this commitment for long period of time, maybe a couple of years, Well, where's the 12 grand gonna come from? Considering, that you still have to pay for travel expenses and entry fees and whatnot. It's pretty tough, Well, some parents can afford it, some not, I think we really need to have some kind of a panel of experts, that would review those grant applications. And no, after all, if we give 10, 5 or 10 kids, if they earn a grant like this, at least they can pay to their coaches, even if it's $6,000 a year. I mean, it's possible, right? Well, we can basically blow $60,000 away, I'm not telling Rex Sinkfield how to spend his money. If he wants to invite top players to St. Louis to play some kind of a blitz, Fisher random rapid combo, whatever, I heard, they're putting this thing together during the World Championship match, actually. Trying to steal the show. I don't understand. Anyway, it costs certainly more, right? No. The money has to come out of somewhere for the young players. All right, so returning to this position. Okay, so I don't blame Oparin for getting busted in this game. Yeah, his whole thing is just fell at the seams, right? So he lost a pawn on the queen side. Well, he couldn't bring more forces against the pawn on g7. His bishop on g2 is still not doing anything. But he tried. He took some risk. Because he understands, I think I read it from his play in this tournament, at least in these games, rounds 3 and 4, that he understands that that's a chance that he has to take. Winning this championship, would make a difference. Finishing at 50% or whatever, -2 would make not a dime of difference, in my opinion. H5. Now, one attractive move was this, trying to play for pins. Yeah, giving up the rook for that check. Probably the correct answer is knight d4. It trades everything and some bad rook end games for white. Maybe lost. There is no attack here. So he plays h5, and now Gaganov. The show is not about Gaganov. I know what the show is about. But I mean, he gets so tentative. Once again, he plays a good game for 27 moves. Can these guys play good chess when they have time on the clock and then they... Why do you go back? What exactly is the... I mean, he played this move. It's a terrible move. Obviously, Oparin hit him with a5. Now it breaks up the pawn chain. How are you going to win the game? By winning the weak pawn on a4? You don't really need it. Oh man, that was... Now I'm looking at this line. He could have done this and that. Maybe he missed this move on the pin. Rook d7 on the mate. Rook back to c1. I mean, black has lost his entire advantage now. His winning advantage was the pawn majority on the queen side. He got broken up. Knight d8 is a terrible move. What? Okay, you ask me what to do here? Well, I tell you what to do. I would like you to place your knight on a5. But yeah. What about this line? So go back with that rook, and I take on e4. Yeah, I like giving the king the h7 square. Yeah, I'm gonna do this. You go rook c3, maybe. I take. You take. Alright, the pawn chain is broken now, but now I believe that black has more chances against the white king. Check is forced, king h7, my king is safe. Extra pawn, bad pawn on h5. Yeah, this was better. Knight d8 is terrible. And now black's game is just headed downhill. Probably time trouble. Now Oparin plays well. No, so he plays best moves. I love bishop h3. He keeps the bishop pair on the board and makes it difficult for black. Uses tactics extremely well. Look at him, not even protecting the bishop. He's on the target now. And this great move. How did he manage to get around and attack the a6 pawn? But probably he should not have won this game still. When they got to this point, bishop takes g7. I think here, in time trouble, for sure it was bad time trouble. Gaganov simply collapsed. He simply collapsed here. He actually had a... Okay, looking at this knight, at black's worst piece, right? Makes everything possible, even some mates. He had a chance of moving the knight out. You can't take that, right? There is check and then I grab the rook. Of course knight c6. And besides, you have to eliminate a5. That's gonna be the danger, right? When he takes a6. Black cannot lose. It's gonna be a draw. As much power as the rook on the 7th and the two bishops have, they can't checkmate. I don't think so. instead. No, well, that's so bad, so he hung his pieces, the bishop on e4 and everything. This was a disaster. Now I think he's lost. He actually resigned here. I think black is simply loses everything. On this one, there'll be this, and if the knight moves away, this is your classic mate. With the rook and 2 bishops. Otherwise, I'll give this check and I'll take the knight. No, it's a disaster. But, good for Oparin, right? So, amazing, it vaulted him the share of first place. Let's look at this cross table. Halfway through, 5 rounds played out of 11. You don't have a guy with +2? I mean, Fedoseev. I mean, I like this player. I looked at some of his games. He was very impressive at the start of the tournament. He won some long games, great technique, great persistence, and he's a talented player and not that old. He's older than Oparin, but maybe by a couple of years. Oparin is 19. This guy is maybe 21. But he also got bogged down into this draws, and now look at this. Yakovenko won a couple of games. Inarkiev continues his tailspin. Oh, remember, I told you a story about Inarkiev, right? So the guy is like national champion, European champion, great guy, some late surgeon, he's, early 30s, but it's been around for a long time. And then, I don't know really, he's from there. I think he lived in different parts of Russia, but basically his heritage is, it's the one of this ethnicities that live in the northern slopes of the Caucasian mountains. Okay, so there is like the Ingush, the Chechen, the Dagestan, Kabardin, all this different. I don't really know, but I mean that. No, exactly who he is, but I think it's Ingushetia, which is the region over there. So some guys, no, he's famous now, so they put up the money and make it possible for Inarkiev to have a match against the player of his choice, and part of this great festival over there, cultural event. Tactic and blind tactic, Finster. I want to warn you against one thing, I think you'll do yourself a favor by looking at more random positions where you don't know if there is a decisive tactic, rather than something preset and put in a book of combinations. Or somehow solving those puzzles, and as much as I love those numerous tactic trainer software things, well, it becomes repetitious. And I don't know, in real life situation, real game situation, well, nobody can give you a little nudge and say, hey, look hard, there is a win here. And I give you one tip, you use interference. No, nobody's gonna do this. So, well, I always analyze the random things, To me, more time you spend it on chess, well, it is more important maybe rather than to have a great study plan and directions. No. I know it doesn't sound very promising what I'm saying. Yeah, anyway, I'm talking about Inarkiev. So they put it together, right? It just happened when? When did it happen? The match, Girlfriend in Archive. It wasn't that long ago. It was after the Olympiad, right? Late September, I think it was. Yeah. I mean, the old man girlfriend is just totally crushed in Archive in all various disciplines of this, particularly in Rapid and Blitz. That must be depressing, You're in your early 30s. I know Girlfriend is a great player. I know. But I mean, you're an upswing, you're European champion. You're not supposed to be embarrassed like this, in front of your whatever home crowd, And I don't know, that was just tough. I think in Archive is still reeling after that. No, I think he has the ability and has the talent, but so all of these guys, but no. So far, looking at this cross table, anybody delivers here? Nobody. Okay, now to last game, which I only looked at this afternoon. I didn't even know the results, right? Okay, so this is Grischuk. Now, Grischuk is another story here. Before the tournament, everybody said Grischuk is well rested, and he's gonna take the title this time. I don't know. He has so far failed to impress. He had a great game going in the opening round with Black. And then in his customary time trouble, he missed it. And I think, that before Grischuk somehow, I don't know where it is, goes for some, I don't know, hires a specialist, lies on a couch somewhere, and whatever, tells that person about his dreams and his childhood and with the purpose of curing him from time trouble, whatever it takes. Or unless this situation, this problem is taken care of, I do not predict any future for Alexander Grischuk. I think that stuff he could get away with, all this acrobatics, and time trouble, it's for younger men. Now his nervous system, nobody's nerves, are as good at 33 as they were at 17 or 23. Yeah, Oparin, has the looks, but I think he's taller than Karpov. And, yeah. Well, it's interesting. Yeah, well, it's a face you will remember. Who knows, maybe, Oparin works with Shipov, you cannot find a better coach in Russia. I think that alone, Shipov worked with Nepomniachtchi and Dubov in the past, he's a top commodity there in coaching market, so. Anyway, so this game, about Grischuk, so far I'm not impressed, and even in this game Grischuk won. So they go for this knight f3. Now it's sort of a sideline, but Grischuk just wanted a maneuvering game. Clearly, Oparin impressed everybody with his handling of tactical positions, particularly in that last game, which he had no business of winning. So Grischuk wanted to slow the game down. It's a known line. I think White's doing okay here. I don't particularly like the system of development. And I don't think the queen on c7 always gives White a chance to go knight d5. But, oops. What I like here, had some notes there. I don't know if my notes mean anything. Move 11 here, right? Gee, just play h6. You can't allow him to play knight g5 when the bishop cannot retreat. I know they play this, but every Najdorf player should be able to. I almost say every Russian schoolboy. Every Russian schoolboy had a little bit of a Najdorf player in him, even if he didn't play the Najdorf. No, I mean, it's not unusual to give up a light square bishop. You get the pawn structure change, and then try to do your king's Indian stuff. Move your knight back and push the f-pawn forward. I mean, it's a sharp game. Maybe white is better, but I mean, it's a game. I don't like this. Now he has to go bishop c4. This whole thing is standard. I mean, almost... I think the young Fischer had a couple of unfortunate games against Geller. More experienced guys like Geller. At the beginning of his career, when he played a Neidorf, of course, always. Trading the light square bishops clearly helps white, and now he has this bind with the a-pawn. And it's bad to play b5 because you lose the pawn on a6. I don't understand, what makes this position attractive for black. And then it does knight c5. Yeah, it took with the pawn. It changed the pawn structure, but it didn't improve it, to be honest. Yeah, the d pawn left, so there's no weakness there, but the whole on d5 remained. And the pawn on c5 is not part of a pawn chain. The a5 pawn, the white pawn, disconnects the black b pawn from the c pawn. And I think that clearly favors white. On the other hand, if you take with this rook, then isn't white happy? Moving the knight from f3 to d5. Wow, that's nice. Clear edge to white, right? Any doubt about it? I have none. So he took this way, and then, I mean, I didn't really want to study all this move by move, but there's nothing for the young player to do. Now, Oparin has to understand that, no, it's not going to help him at all. Not even in the occasional game. When he sits there in the trenches, his style is different. He should be doing what he was doing in the previous two games. Correct or incorrect, no matter what, that's his only chance. He's not doing himself any service by entering positions like this. Yeah, I agree with you, Rossa. When the pawn structure changes in the Neidorf, black has to accept it, and they have to try to make the best out of this. Now, compare this position with the one we were talking about. Yeah, white is not threatening to overrun you with pawns, but white's got squares. And he's gonna perch on the squares, like till kingdom come. And where is your counterplay? Particularly for a young player, it's a no-no. Better go down fighting, in some tactical battle, you learn more. And it's like they say, oh, you have to learn to defend. Well, yeah, you learn to defend by necessity, because you're going to have your share of bad positions. But you don't learn to defend by design. Don't get in the passive positions. Besides, you have to work on your strength more than on your weaknesses. Oparin now is talented, but does anyone in the world fear Oparin and say, oh man, this is the Oparin position, that's the Oparovian position, I'm doomed. Like people have this feeling when they get into a Warsaw game against Magnus Carlsen, or give Nepomniachtchi the initiative, or whatever, or get into time scramble against Hikaru Nakamura. That's what Oparin needs to work on. And this game doesn't help him none in doing this. So they maneuver, they go back and forth. Now Grischuk plays accurately, probably was in time trouble again, I think, because few moves down the road. Okay, all nice. Came rook d8. It is hard to tell if this move was a blunder or some provocation, because white could win a pawn. I'll prove it to you. I take it. I take that. Okay, so what do? If you take with the rook, maybe you take with the bishop to win a5. Fine, I take. And I take. I'm gonna get b7, right? Seriously, I'm getting b7. I mean, I don't even have to trade and go next knight c5. I can do this. The queen and knight can ruin your day very quickly. Look at the white king, totally. I guess queen c7 is the only move. So, alright, Mr. Former number 2 in the world, Alexander Grischuk. What is that didn't attract you at this position? You have a technical win. Well, it'll take a few dozen of moves maybe. But I mean, besides, what more can white get out of this? If he doesn't take a chance to win the pawn on c5. My conclusion is time trouble. Okay, that's a typical move just to reach the time control. Typical few moves. Okay, got to this. Another shuffling of the pieces. And now, I don't know, I have a feeling Oparin started playing for a win. Or maybe he got tired of defending. Maybe his natural understanding of the game was just finally rebelled against this passive defense, and that's normal. So he went for it. Well, the problem is that he doesn't really get anything out of this trade on the few moves later. You will see it. This trade actually helps white. In a strange way, but the attack on the b file is very strong. It's huge, but this rook b1 is coming. Bad pawns on the c file, but half open file. That's what white needed. Along with the totally just the knight rules the roost, obviously. This is bad. I don't know how to defend here. So, we know Oparin, right? He says, forget about it, I give you the exchange. Way to go, Grigory. This is the kind of chess we like. And Grischuk falters. He probably should have gone f3. He does this, it's a bad move. Now black unrolls. f5. Suddenly, with the removal of the e4 pawn, black's playing, right? Black's playing. The white rook nearly got caught on c4. And now I'm looking at this position. All right, move 52. Well, so that's sudden death right now, right? Okay, of course there is a 30-second increment, but I'm sure Oparin, felt it. All right, I mean, I'm alive. But he misplayed it so badly. He played the move c4. This is horror. If white had a problem in this position with his extra exchange, was the passivity of his rooks. Why open the b file against your target on b7? Why give white this room for the rooks? His rooks are currently clumsy, particularly the rook on a4, and the rook on a1 is yet to get into play. Come on, look at the other side of the board. Pawn sacrifice. All right. Let's sacrifice some pawns. Now you're talking. Now you got the capture on f4 and your rook coming to h2 and better yet h3. I love rook to h3. Knight takes f4 check and just swipe this whole thing off the board. I don't think white is better here at all. If anything, I mean, I would prefer to be black here. And with Grischuk's time trouble, well, you're one Grischuk's blunder away from getting to +2 and leading the tournament. Oh man, Grigory Oparin, why did you even look at the wrong side of the board with c4? You had to go g5. Black's not worse here. Look how it ended. Just horror. Back with the pieces now. He's defending on this cheaper fork. He's not quite defending. Even missed that. Resigned here. No, for good reason, right? He lost his pawn and now white just dominating. He's got rook b6 on knight d5 coming right at you. Maybe knight d7 was a blunder, but seriously, this position would be impossible to defend, in my opinion. Look at the white rooks now. Black doesn't have enough compensation for the exchange here. His b7 is too weak. But this would be a fight. There would be a longer game. Clearly rook c7 was better than knight d7. But I guess Oparin realized what he had done by then after rook b1 and just didn't have the strength to fight on. The game that was turning in his favor. Now, it's important, of course. Well, one of things you learn, that there are no unbeatable players. And when you feel like that your opponent is drifting, even if his name is Alexander Grischuk, well, this is when you crank up the pressure. And Nakamura always knew it. He had the natural ability of doing this. And that's why a lot of wins, in the past in particular, seemed like they went Nakamura's way because of opponents' strange blunders and big errors. But that's Nakamura's decisive play that set it up. Yeah. Affordability issues in American chess. Yeah, I talked a little bit about this. No, I don't want to follow exactly along with what that guy told me, right? The father of a very promising young player 10 years ago. That this thing, takes 100 grand a year. No, they had multiple coaches and traveled everywhere. And well, it's probably not that much. As I said, but the very minimum, if you want to retain a coach, and you want to be, okay, I'm not going to say speed dial again. If you want to be on that guy's contact list, so he remembers and maybe gives a little bit more time, then, I don't know, just it takes certain commitment. I don't know, the different coaches ask for different rates. I would say the very minimum is $500 a month, Simply, and then you stay with this guy. Obviously, there are choices of coaches. And that's important, obviously. But the rest of it, I don't know, your tournament schedule, how you travel with your kid, what you can or you cannot afford. Maybe you cannot afford the US Open, and then all of 10 nights in a hotel, somewhere on the other, at the other coast, maybe it's too much. Maybe you can play locally, but whatever. And no, it's expensive. I mean, I think, that would be great, and I already said it early in the show, if... see, we used to have this, like the American Chess Foundation, and then it formed and reinvented itself into chess in the schools. And I'm sure they've done a lot of great things, but schools is schools, I mean, now nobody cares, which school that kid goes to. Maybe he's homeschooled. No, that's his chess accomplishment, along with, some academic minimum that should be considered, just like they do it for the for Sanford Fellowship. It just has to be done at a younger age. We don't need to wait, But what they say now, I mean, you can get your Sanford when you graduate high school. Okay, that's important, but it's a different thing. But at the school age players, I think some scholarships that would at least pay for the coaching would be a great idea if we could find the sponsors for that. Other things, no, well, travel to this world youth. Here I don't call for that. To me, the world youth is a money-making thing, like generations of players, including Gary Kasparov, when they never played in under 8, under 10, and under 12. I think those are gimmick things. I don't think there's really that important, those events. To me, this whole thing, I can understand under 16. Then you already have the players that are committed, and if somebody wins world under 16, they're probably going to be a good player, a real strong player. And so, I don't know, if you're thinking of sending your kid to world youth, at the other end of the earth, and you're looking at a $7,000 bill, I would say the money can be spent wiser elsewhere. Not easy to see money go there for scholarship. No, well, I don't know. They always talk about that some super rich people, they play chess, like Bill Gates or whatever. But I mean, this is I don't know. I cannot really tell you anything about fundraising and how it's done. It's a big business, put it this way. The administrative costs, they're probably going to eat up, a good half of the money. And I'm sure that's what's happening now with St. Louis Chess Club. As great a job they have done, supporting the U.S. Championship and the U.S. Olympic team, no, it's probably a fraction of the money that's spent everywhere, elsewhere. And this is the name of the game. You're not going to have people working for you for free. That's how it is. Now, I don't know if it's going to be them or the next person, whoever he is, that becomes the patron of chess in the United States. But I think they would be useful. But nothing's guaranteed, right? I mean, there are the coaches working individually, but no, not every student becomes a Magnus Carlsen. There is a lot of stuff there, and it's probably a subject for longer talk some other time. Right now, my time is up. As usual, I run long. Super rich chess player found in scholarship for every state. Okay. No, technically speaking, yes, we could think, but I mean, the chess players, they're very good at taking, but I don't know how good they are at giving. And besides, even with successful people like Caruana and Nakamura, and now Wesley is getting there, we're talking what, somewhere between $250,000 and $500,000 a year. No, after taxes and this and that, and besides, these guys, like, they're just building up their life, right? They're young. I mean, it's pretty harsh, to ask them to shell out even 10 grand, to put their name on some kind of scholarship. I mean, they could probably do this, but no, I wouldn't blame them if they say, no, I'm sorry, I can't. I don't know. Somebody puts up the money there, and says, okay, this is a Nakamura scholarship for all players in Florida. Well, that's great. And Nakamura shows up there and shakes their hands, and has a picture taken with them and gives them a little clinic. That would be great. But the money has to come from somewhere. Scholarship sports tend to be the same. World title. A professional that sport wins national league. No, yeah, I understand. I understand what you're saying. No, well, everybody wants to attach this world thing, like that. Probably Americans are the most known for that, but on the other hand, I mean, they have international representation in their professional leagues. I mean, all 4 big sports: basketball, hockey, football, and baseball. I mean, there are so many players from Latin America, in baseball, for example. Way more, than, say, black, African American players. But anyway, that's a subject for different talk. And right now, indeed, time is up. So I want to thank you all for being there with me. Now I'm taking a break. So now next month, I tell you what. In the middle of the month, when the World Championship match is in full swing, I'm gonna have 2 special editions of my Russian Schoolboy show live. Both would be devoted to the World Championship match. Pencil it in, November 17th, which is a Thursday. And then, surprisingly, but that's what the schedule calls for, November 20th, which is a Sunday. Now, the time... I would like to start immediately after the game is over, which, in my estimation, has to be somewhere between, I don't know, maybe 7 p.m. Eastern Time and 8 p.m. Sorry, European listeners, you're gonna have to stay up late. Well, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do 2 of them. It's all I can do because of my schedule of traveling and other things. But besides, you want to have some other people covering the World Championship as well. But these are my 2 shows on the 17th and the 20th of November. I would say be there by about 7 p.m. Eastern. Or also watch out for announcements. Look forward to doing this. And for now, take care, guys. Goodbye.